There are investments that vanish in the blink of an eye. A booming stock market can crash overnight. A beautiful house can lose half its value when the neighborhood declines. A brand new car becomes a used car the moment it leaves the lot. Money can evaporate with a bad decision, an unexpected crisis, or simply with the passage of time. But there is one form of capital that never depreciates, one wealth that never erodes no matter how the world changes. Knowledge. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, put it plainly. The best investment you can make is in yourself. This statement is more than financial advice. It is a guiding principle for life. Because unlike stocks, property, or material possessions, the education you carry inside you cannot be stolen, cannot be taxed away, and cannot collapse with a market downturn. It grows with every use, and most importantly, it compounds. Just like compound interest multiplies a small amount of money into great wealth over time, learning multiplies your ability to see opportunities, make decisions, and build a life of enduring value. Think about it. A book read today plants a seed in your mind. That seed grows into understanding. When you apply that understanding in real life, it becomes wisdom. Wisdom then opens doors to new opportunities, conversations, and ventures. Each experience feeds back into your knowledge, deepening your insight and sharpening your perspective. Over years and decades, the effect is exponential. This is why some people, without inheriting fortune or luck, build lives of meaning and success. They invested early and consistently in knowledge. And here's something fascinating. Unlike money, the more you use knowledge, the more valuable it becomes. Spend $1 and it's gone. Share an idea, teach a skill, or apply a lesson, and suddenly that knowledge doubles back to you, enriched by feedback, improved through practice, and magnified through impact. It is the only capital in the world that multiplies every time it's used. Pause for a moment and reflect. Where are you right now as you listen to these words? Perhaps you're at home, maybe on your commute, or even winding down before bed. Wherever you are, I invite you to share in the comments below your location and the time of day you're tuning in. It's a way of joining a global circle of learners, each of us in different places, yet connected by a shared pursuit of knowledge. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to Audiobook Sanctuary and turn on notifications, so you never miss the next journey we take together into the world of ideas. Now, let's return to the story of knowledge as investment. History is filled with examples of individuals who lost everything material but rose again because of what they carried in their minds. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. At one point, a fire destroyed much of his laboratory and years of research. Many would have been broken by such a loss. But Edison didn't lose his true wealth. His knowledge, his creativity, his relentless curiosity. With those, he rebuilt and went on to create even more inventions that shaped modern life. His fortune wasn't in the equipment that burned, but in the mind that conceived possibilities. Or take Viktor Frankl, the Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps during World War II. Stripped of possessions, robbed of freedom, and facing unimaginable suffering, he found that his only real wealth was the knowledge and meaning he carried inside. Out of that crucible, he developed his famous philosophy of logotherapy, teaching that even in the harshest conditions, we have the power to choose our attitude and find meaning. His insights became a foundation of modern psychology, guiding millions long after the war. His story proves with heartbreaking clarity, even when everything external is taken, the wealth of the mind endures. Knowledge is not only resilient, it is also liberating. Material possessions tie us to fear of loss, The more we accumulate, the more anxious we become about protecting it. Knowledge, by contrast, frees us. It allows us to walk into new situations with confidence, because we are not defined by what we own, but by what we understand and can do. A person who knows how to adapt, how to think critically, and how to learn on the fly is never truly poor. Even if stripped down to nothing, they can rebuild, pivot, and thrive again. In today's world, this truth is more urgent than ever. We live in an age of constant change. Industries rise and fall. Technology evolves at dizzying speed, and careers that existed yesterday may be obsolete tomorrow. In such a landscape, knowledge is not just an advantage, it is survival. The ability to keep learning, to stay curious, to treat every day as a classroom, becomes the ultimate shield against uncertainty. But here's the subtle distinction. Not all learning is equal. Many people gather information, but never transform it into wisdom. True investment in knowledge requires intentionality. It means choosing what to study, how to practice, and how to integrate lessons into daily life. This is why Buffett's words resonate so deeply. Investing in yourself is not a casual pastime. It is a strategy, a lifelong discipline. Picture this. Someone who spends money on luxury goods may feel rich for a moment, but their wealth diminishes as those items wear out. Someone who spends that same money on a course in financial literacy gains skills that will serve them for decades, shaping every decision they make. One path leads to temporary satisfaction, the other to compounding returns. And this brings us to the heart of our journey together. We will explore, step by step, the many ways to invest in knowledge, from the simple act of reading a book, to mastering new skills, to seeking guidance from mentors and structured learning. We'll also look at how to choose wisely what to learn, so your investments yield value not only today, but for decades to come. And finally, we'll see how the cycle of learning, applying, and sharing turns knowledge into a living legacy that enriches not only your own life, but the lives of others. Knowledge is not just a personal asset, it's the seed of collective growth. When you invest in it, you're not only securing your future, you're contributing to a world where wisdom flows, where ideas build bridges, and where progress becomes possible for everyone. So, as we close this first section, remember this. The only investment that never fails is the one you make in your own mind. It cannot be stolen, it cannot be lost, and it will serve you in ways you cannot yet imagine. From here, let us step deeper into the idea of knowledge as capital that cannot be stolen. We'll look at why this form of wealth is immune to crisis, why it remains intact through the storms of life, and how countless individuals have relied on it to rebuild, reinvent, and rise again. If money can be stolen, if gold can be confiscated, and if property can be destroyed, then why is knowledge so different? The answer lies in its very nature. Knowledge is not something you keep in a vault or hide under a mattress. It lives within you. It is integrated into your mind, your habits, your perspective, and your way of approaching life. That's why knowledge is capital that cannot be stolen. Consider the ancient empires that fell throughout history. Cities were sacked, treasures looted, palaces burned. Yet in the ashes, knowledge survived, because it was carried by the people who remembered, who taught, who rebuilt. The mathematicians of Greece, the philosophers of India, the scientists of the Islamic Golden Age, all of them carried forward ideas that could not be erased by war or destruction. Civilizations crumbled, but knowledge marched on. This same principle plays out in the lives of individuals. Imagine a successful entrepreneur who loses a company overnight. Perhaps the market shifts or a competitor overtakes them. or an economic crisis wipes out their assets. At first glance, it might look like total ruin. But if that entrepreneur has deep knowledge of business models, negotiation, leadership, and innovation, then what they have really lost is only temporary. Their true wealth is still intact. With those skills, they can start again. Many have. Take the example of Henry Ford. Before he built the Ford Motor Company, he had already faced bankruptcy multiple times with earlier ventures. He lost money, investors, and factories. But he didn't lose the knowledge he had gained about mechanical engineering, production, and design. That knowledge became the foundation for his revolutionary idea of the assembly line, an innovation that reshaped industry and made cars affordable for ordinary families. Money vanished, but knowledge endured and multiplied into a global empire. Or think of Steve Jobs. When he was ousted from Apple in 1985, many believed his career was over. Stripped of the company he had built, Jobs could have retreated in defeat. But what remained was his knowledge of design, technology, and vision. With that, he founded Next and invested in Pixar, two ventures that expanded his creativity and influence. When he returned to Apple years later, he transformed it into the most valuable company in the world. The wealth of knowledge he carried within him was the true engine of his success. Knowledge is immune not just to theft, but also to inflation. Money loses value over time. What you can buy with $1 today is far less than what you could buy 50 years ago. But the lessons you learned 50 years ago may be more valuable today than ever before. Think of someone who studied computer science in the 1970s, when computing was still in its infancy. At the time, it may have seemed like a niche interest, but that knowledge became priceless as technology evolved. What once was obscure turned into the foundation of the modern economy. The value of knowledge, unlike currency, often appreciates with time. There's also resilience in knowledge during crisis. In times of war, depression, or pandemic, possessions may vanish, but knowledge adapts. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, many families lost their farms, homes, and jobs. But those who knew how to grow food, fix machinery, or sew clothing survived far better than those who only relied on money. Their skills were their shield. Knowledge provided security when the banking system failed and economies collapsed. And this applies to personal crises too. Imagine someone who suffers a major health setback, unable to return to their old job. If all they had was money, their identity might collapse. But if they had knowledge, whether in another profession, in creative expression, or in problem solving, they could reinvent themselves. We see this often in athletes who retire from competition, those who invested in learning beyond their sport, whether in coaching, business, or media, transition successfully into new chapters. Those who did not struggle. The lesson is clear. Knowledge is portable wealth. You carry it wherever you go. When immigrants arrive in a new country with nothing but a suitcase, the ones who thrive are those who bring with them knowledge, skills in cooking, craftsmanship, science, or trade. This has been the story of America itself. Generations of people who arrived penniless but became prosperous through the capital of knowledge. It's worth reflecting here on how secure you truly are. Many people measure their safety by their bank balance or their possessions. But true security lies in what you know and how you can apply it. A market downturn can erase savings, but it cannot erase your ability to learn, to adapt, and to create value. Let me share another story, this time from Japan. After World War II, Japan was devastated. Cities bombed, industries shattered, and infrastructure destroyed. Yet within a few decades, it rose to become one of the world's most advanced economies. How? The country had very little natural resources, but possessed something far greater: a culture of discipline, learning, and craftsmanship. Japanese engineers and workers poured their knowledge into rebuilding industries. The Toyota production system, a method of lean manufacturing, emerged from this period and became a global model. Japan's wealth was not in what it had, but in what it knew. This resilience of knowledge teaches us something vital. We must treat knowledge not as optional, not as a luxury, but as the most secure investment we can make. Every book you read, every skill you learn, every lesson you absorb becomes part of your permanent portfolio. It is your inner bank account, immune to theft and immune to time. And so, as we close this section, let's hold this image. Material wealth can slip through your fingers like sand, but knowledge is a diamond embedded in the very core of who you are. It cannot be stolen, cannot be lost, and only grows brighter the more you use it. From here, we will move into the most accessible door to this kind of wealth: books. Books are the first gateway, the simple yet profound way to invest in yourself, to step into the minds of the greatest thinkers, and to begin compounding your own fortune of knowledge. A book is the simplest door to wealth, yet one of the most overlooked. In a single volume, you gain access to years, sometimes decades, of someone else's thinking, experiments, successes, and failures. For the price of a meal, you inherit the lifetime lessons of a philosopher, a scientist, a leader, or an entrepreneur. Few other investments offer such a return. Books are not just paper and ink. They are vessels of accumulated human experience, compressed and preserved, waiting to be unlocked. Consider this. When Benjamin Franklin, one of America's founding fathers, was a boy, his family could not afford much formal schooling, but he devoured books. Reading became his apprenticeship. Through books, he learned the art of writing, science, politics, and philosophy. That self-education became the foundation for his inventions, his diplomacy, and his vision of a new nation. Franklin once wrote, "If a man empties his purse into his head, no one can take it away from him." In other words, spend your money on knowledge, and it becomes yours forever. Reading is an equalizer. You may not have the wealth of a billionaire or the connections of a president, but when you open the same book they once read, you walk beside them in thought. Reading the autobiography of Nelson Mandela allows you to sit in his cell on Robben Island, to feel his endurance, and to absorb his wisdom on forgiveness and leadership. Opening the pages of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations lets you enter the inner reflections of a Roman emperor wrestling with virtue, duty, and mortality. These voices, long gone, speak across centuries because knowledge endures in books. And yet, in our modern age, with every distraction at our fingertips, reading is often neglected. People scroll endlessly on phones, consuming fragments of information, but rarely commit to deep, focused reading. But here is the paradox. The more distracted the world becomes, the greater the advantage for the one who reads. Because when you read, you train your mind in patience, in focus, and in depth of understanding, qualities that are increasingly rare. Books also serve as mirrors. Sometimes, we read not to learn something new, but to recognize truths we already sensed, but could not articulate. A novel may awaken empathy, showing us pieces of ourselves in the struggles of its characters. A work of history may reveal patterns that echo our present. In this way, books are not just about accumulating knowledge. They are about shaping identity and deepening our humanity. Let us look at some examples. Warren Buffett, whom we quoted earlier, is known not only for his investments, but also for his relentless reading habit. He once said he spends about 80% of his day reading and thinking. When asked how to become smarter, he held up a stack of reports and said, "Read 500 pages like this every week. That's how knowledge builds up, like compound interest." His fortune was built not merely on capital, but on the hours he invested in absorbing knowledge from books and reports. Bill Gates follows a similar pattern. Despite his responsibilities, he takes think weeks, during which he isolates himself with stacks of books and papers. From these, he draws insights that shape his philanthropy and innovations. His reflections on global health, education, and climate change have been fueled by the habit of reading. Books are not only for the elite, they have lifted countless ordinary people. Think of Malcolm X, who, while in prison, painstakingly copied the entire dictionary by hand to improve his vocabulary. From that foundation, he immersed himself in philosophy, history, and politics. Reading became his liberation, transforming him from an inmate into one of the most powerful voices of the civil rights movement. His story reminds us, a book in the hands of a determined soul can alter destiny, and reading does not have to mean heavy philosophy or complex textbooks. Even stories and novels enrich the mind. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series has inspired millions of young readers to embrace imagination, courage, and moral choices. Literature often teaches us what statistics and charts cannot: the texture of human life, the emotional truth behind numbers. What matters most is to build the habit. Set aside daily time, even 15 minutes, to read with focus. Over a year, those minutes accumulate into entire shelves of wisdom. Choose a mix: biographies to learn from great lives, practical guides to sharpen your skills, and timeless works that feed the spirit. Keep a notebook to capture insights, because knowledge multiplies when you write it down and reflect on it. Imagine reading a book about communication, then applying a single lesson in your next conversation. That small shift could improve a relationship, influence a colleague, or open a door to opportunity. This is the compounding power of books. One page, one idea, one action at a time, until your entire life trajectory shifts. And perhaps the greatest gift of books is empathy. When you read, you step outside yourself. You see the world through other eyes, whether a character in a novel or a thinker in another culture. In an era when division and misunderstanding run deep, reading builds bridges. It allows us to carry not just knowledge but compassion. So let us recognize books for what they are: the first gateway to wealth. They are the starting point of every journey into knowledge, the foundation upon which skills, mentors, and experiences build. Without books, much of human progress would not exist. With them, any person, no matter how humble their beginnings, can access the wisdom of the ages. As we close this section, remember this: the return on reading is not measured in hours spent, but in doors opened. Every book you finish is a new key on your chain of possibilities. And now, we move from the realm of reading into the realm of practice. Because knowledge, to become true wealth, must take form in skills. Skills are where theory becomes power, where what you have read translates into what you can do. Knowledge becomes true power only when it turns into skill. A book can fill your mind with ideas, but unless those ideas are translated into practice, they remain dormant. Skills are the bridge between what you know and what you can actually do. They are the form of knowledge that takes root in your hands, your voice, your decisions, and your actions. Without skills, knowledge is like potential energy, stored but unused. With skills, knowledge becomes kinetic energy, force in motion. Think about learning to swim. You can read 100 books about swimming, watch countless videos, and even memorize every technique. But until you step into the water and move your body, you do not truly know how to swim. Skill requires embodiment. It requires practice, repetition, and the courage to fail and try again. This is why investing in skills is one of the most powerful ways to convert knowledge into lasting wealth. Let us take communication skills as an example. How many opportunities in life are gained or lost because of the way we express ourselves? From job interviews to negotiations, from building relationships to leading teams, communication is at the center. Warren Buffett once said that improving your communication skills can increase your career value by at least 50%. That is how transformative a skill can be. You don't just carry knowledge, you project it, persuade with it, and inspire with it. Real-life stories illustrate this vividly. Consider Dale Carnegie, who grew up shy and insecure. Through deliberate practice in speaking and interacting with people, he transformed himself into one of the greatest teachers of communication. His classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, has helped millions acquire the skills of empathy, persuasion, and connection. His journey shows that even weaknesses can be turned into powerful skills through dedication. Or think of Oprah Winfrey. Born into poverty and hardship, she rose not through inheritance or connections, but through the skill of storytelling and authentic communication. Her ability to connect deeply with people, to listen, and to respond with empathy built her career as a talk show host, and later as a global influencer. Knowledge alone did not create her empire. It was her mastery of the skill of human connection. Skills have another remarkable quality. They are transferable across fields. Someone who learns problem-solving in engineering can apply it in business. A musician who hones discipline and creativity can transfer that mindset into entrepreneurship. Once embedded, skills often serve you in unexpected ways. They make you adaptable. They prepare you to pivot when life shifts. Let's look at technology skills in today's world. A person who invests in learning coding or data analysis may find opportunities not only in the tech industry, but in healthcare, finance, education, and beyond. Technology touches every domain, and those with the skill to navigate it gain an edge. But the principle applies everywhere. Whether it is cooking, writing, leadership, or craftsmanship, the skill you acquire becomes a tool you can use repeatedly in diverse situations, often beyond what you first imagined. Skills also build confidence. Think of the first time you tried something new, whether driving a car, cooking a meal, or learning a sport. At first, there was hesitation, but with practice, the skill became natural. That confidence spills into other areas of life. When you know you can learn and master one skill, you believe you can tackle others. It creates a momentum of growth. And here is the beauty of skills. They often compound just like knowledge. Learning one skill accelerates your ability to learn another. A person who learns public speaking often becomes a better writer. Someone who learns problem solving often becomes a better leader. Each skill interacts with the others, creating a web of capability that makes you more versatile and powerful over time. There is also a financial truth here. While possessions depreciate, skills appreciate. The car you buy today will lose value every year, but the skill of financial literacy, negotiation, or leadership will pay you back more every year as your experience grows. In the job market, employers pay for what you can do, not just what you know. And in entrepreneurship, your ability to adapt skills to solve problems often determines success. History offers many lessons here. Consider Leonardo da Vinci, the quintessential Renaissance man. He did not limit himself to one area. He mastered painting, engineering, anatomy, and invention. His diverse skills allowed him to see connections others could not, leading to breakthroughs in both art and science. His wealth was not in possessions, but in his ability to do many things well. Or more recently, look at Elon Musk. Whether admired or criticized, his success comes from combining skills across fields: engineering, physics, business, and communication. By applying these diverse skills, he built companies that disrupted industries from space travel to electric vehicles. His story reminds us that skills are the engines of innovation. The path to building skills is simple, though not always easy. Practice consistently, seek feedback, and stay humble enough to keep learning. It requires patience because mastery comes slowly. But every hour invested in practice is like depositing into a lifelong bank account of competence. So, as you reflect, ask yourself, which skill are you currently building? Which skill could transform your future if you committed to it? The investment you make in acquiring and sharpening skills may be the single most reliable predictor of your long-term success. As we move forward, we will explore how guidance from others, mentors, teachers, and structured courses can accelerate this journey. Because while self-learning builds a strong foundation, the wisdom of those who have gone before us compresses time, helping us avoid mistakes and leap further than we could alone. There is an old saying, "A wise person learns from their own mistakes, but a truly wise person learns from the mistakes of others." This is the heart of why mentors and structured courses matter. You can struggle alone, stumbling through trial and error, or you can compress decades of learning into days by tapping into the experience of those who have walked the path before you. Guidance is not a shortcut in the sense of skipping effort, but it is a shortcut in terms of time. It saves you years of wasted energy and missed opportunities. Think of a mentor as a living library. A mentor has already endured failures, experimented with strategies, and refined their knowledge through lived experience. When they share that with you, they hand you a map that spares you from wandering aimlessly. Every great figure in history had teachers. Alexander the Great had Aristotle. The founding fathers of America studied the works of Locke and Montesquieu. Even today, the most accomplished leaders credit mentors for shaping their perspective. Let's take a practical example. In business, entrepreneurs who seek mentorship are statistically far more likely to succeed. A study by the U.S. Small Business Administration found that 70% of mentored businesses survive past 5 years, compared to only 35% of those without mentors. That is not coincidence. It is the direct result of applied wisdom passed from one person to another. Consider the story of Oprah Winfrey again. Behind her rise was the influence of Barbara Walters, the pioneering broadcaster who showed Oprah what was possible. Walters didn't give Oprah money or fame, but she gave her perspective. How to carry herself, how to ask meaningful questions, how to build trust with an audience. That mentorship shaped Oprah's trajectory, proving that guidance often outweighs material gifts. Courses and structured programs function similarly. When you take a well-designed course, you are essentially renting the mind of an expert for a period of time. Instead of piecing together scattered information, you get a clear framework, tested methods, and focused learning. This structure is invaluable. For example, someone trying to learn photography could spend years experimenting without direction, or they could enroll in a course that condenses the principles of lighting, composition, and editing into weeks. The knowledge is the same, but the speed of acquisition is radically different. Look at martial arts traditions. A student could attempt to learn fighting by trial and error in the streets, but under the guidance of a master, They not only learn technique, but also discipline, respect, and philosophy. The same principle applies to every domain. Guidance gives depth, and structure gives clarity. There's also something transformative about accountability. When you commit to a course or a mentor, you invite feedback. And feedback, though sometimes uncomfortable, accelerates growth. Think of Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. He had raw talent, yes, but it was under the mentorship of coaches like Dean Smith and Phil Jackson that his talent crystallized into legendary skill. Guidance turned potential into mastery. Mentorship also provides something books alone cannot: personal encouragement and correction. A mentor sees your blind spots, those patterns of thought or behavior you cannot see yourself. They challenge you, refine you, and often believe in you before you believe in yourself. That belief is powerful. History is filled with people who rose higher because someone else saw in them what they could not yet see. And there is humility in seeking guidance. It is an acknowledgement that we do not know everything and that others hold pieces of the puzzle we need. This humility is not weakness, it is wisdom. It keeps us from arrogance, from thinking we can figure out everything alone. The greatest learners are often the most humble, because they understand that learning is endless and that teachers are everywhere. Courses and mentors also connect you to networks. A good teacher introduces you to a community of learners. A wise mentor opens doors to people and opportunities you might never reach alone. These connections are sometimes as valuable as the knowledge itself, because growth rarely happens in isolation. Think of Steve Jobs and his mentor, Robert Friedland, who influenced Jobs with teachings about intuition, simplicity, and vision. These lessons echoed through Apple's products and culture. Jobs didn't just inherit technical knowledge. He absorbed philosophy and perspective that shaped his legacy. So, how can you find mentors and learning opportunities? Sometimes they come naturally, through work, friendships, or community. Other times, you must seek them deliberately, enrolling in courses, reaching out to leaders you admire, or even following modern forms of mentorship through podcasts, lectures, and online communities. In today's digital world, mentors are more accessible than ever. The key is to remain open, attentive, and willing to learn. Remember this truth: when you walk with someone who has traveled farther than you, your own journey accelerates. You may stumble, but you stumble forward, faster, and with clearer vision. As we move to the next stage of our journey, we will explore how to choose wisely what to learn. Because not every skill or subject brings the same return. Just as investors evaluate where to put their money, so too must we evaluate where to place our learning energy. The right choices can yield dividends for a lifetime. Not all learning yields the same return. Just as an investor studies markets to choose the right assets, a wise learner studies life to choose the right subjects. Time is finite, energy is limited, and the world is overflowing with information. That means we must be deliberate in what we choose to learn, or else we risk scattering our attention across endless distractions. The art of learning is not only about effort, it is also about selection. Think of it like planting seeds. You can scatter seeds randomly, and some may grow, but most will wither in poor soil. Or you can choose fertile ground, plant intentionally, and harvest abundantly. Your mind is the soil, and knowledge is the seed. The question is, what seeds will you plant? Some areas of learning give lifelong dividends. Let us begin with financial literacy. No matter what you do in life, money touches everything. Whether you are an artist, a teacher, or an entrepreneur, You will need to earn, spend, save, and invest. Yet many people graduate from school without ever being taught how money works. They know advanced mathematics, but do not understand compound interest, budgeting, or the dangers of debt. Learning financial literacy is like installing a compass in your life. It guides you safely through storms of temptation and crisis. Consider the difference between two individuals. One spends impulsively, takes on high-interest debt, and never saves. The other learns early about budgeting, compound growth, and investment principles. Over time, the gap between them is not small. It is vast. The first struggles with anxiety and instability, while the second builds security and freedom. Knowledge of money multiplies across decades, making it one of the most valuable subjects to study. Another critical area is emotional intelligence. Unlike IQ, which measures raw cognitive ability, emotional intelligence determines how you handle yourself and others. It includes self-awareness, self-control, empathy, and relationship management. Studies show that emotional intelligence is often a stronger predictor of success in leadership and career than IQ. Why? Because life is not lived in isolation. Success depends on trust, collaboration, and influence. You can be brilliant in theory, but if you cannot manage your emotions or connect with others, your knowledge remains locked inside. Daniel Goleman, who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence, tells stories of leaders who failed not because they lacked technical expertise, but because they could not control anger, handle stress, or inspire loyalty. Conversely, leaders with high emotional intelligence often rise beyond their peers because they bring calm, clarity, and connection to every situation. Learning this skill yields not only professional dividends, but also personal fulfillment. It deepens marriages, strengthens friendships, and helps us raise children with wisdom. A third area is adaptability to technology. The modern world is shaped by rapid technological shifts. A person who resists learning new tools is like a sailor refusing to adjust sails to the wind. Inevitably, they will be left behind. But those who invest in digital literacy, understanding how to navigate new platforms, data, and tools, remain relevant no matter how the winds shift. This does not mean chasing every trend, but focusing on core adaptability. Learning how to learn new technologies, how to stay curious rather than fearful, and how to apply tools to amplify your strengths. Take Kodak as a cautionary tale. Once a giant in photography, Kodak failed to adapt to digital cameras, even though it had invented the technology itself. It clung to the past and lost everything. On the other hand, companies like Netflix thrived because they were willing to learn, to evolve from DVDs to streaming to global content production. The principle is clear. Individuals and organizations that continue learning remain alive. Those who stop, stagnate. Alongside these universal areas, each person must also choose subjects aligned with their calling. If you are drawn to art, then mastering techniques, history, and innovation in art is worthwhile. If you are drawn to medicine, then continual study of healing becomes your path. What matters is that your chosen learning serves both your future and the greater good. Because knowledge that does not find expression in service often becomes sterile. Here's a guiding framework. When deciding what to learn, ask 3 questions. First, is this knowledge timeless or temporary? Some subjects lose value quickly, while others grow richer with age. Philosophy, human psychology, and ethics are timeless. Learning the inner workings of a specific software may be temporary, but learning the principles of problem-solving ensures you can master any tool that comes later. Second, will this knowledge create leverage? That is, will it multiply your ability to achieve more with less effort? Learning how to delegate, for example, gives leverage across all projects. Learning how to communicate clearly amplifies every other area of life. Third, does this knowledge align with who I want to become? Learning is not just about filling the mind, it is about shaping identity. The subjects you choose will carve pathways in your life. Be intentional about who you are becoming through what you study. History offers many examples of strategic learning. Mahatma Gandhi studied law in London, which gave him tools to fight injustice in South Africa and later in India. His legal knowledge alone was valuable, but when aligned with his passion for truth and justice, it became transformative. His learning was not random. It was intentional, chosen to serve his mission. Or think of Abraham Lincoln. Born poor and largely self-educated, he chose to study law, history, and rhetoric. These areas gave him the skills to argue persuasively, to lead a nation, and to articulate moral vision during its darkest hours. His deliberate choices in learning became the foundation for his presidency. We live in an age where information is abundant, but wisdom is scarce. The key is not to consume endlessly, but to curate wisely. Each hour you invest in learning should feel like depositing into an account that will yield not just for you, but for those you influence. And so, as we close this section, let us remember, just as a wise investor chooses assets with care, a wise learner chooses knowledge with discernment. The subjects you commit to will shape your destiny. Now we turn to the final stage of our journey, the cycle of knowledge itself. Because learning is not complete when you acquire or even apply it. It becomes most powerful when you share it, when knowledge circulates, multiplies, and builds a legacy. This is the knowledge circle. Learn, apply, share. Knowledge is not meant to sit still. Like water, it stagnates when hoarded, but flows with life when it moves. The final stage of investing in knowledge is learning to create a cycle. Learn, apply, and share. This is the circle of knowledge, the rhythm that turns information into wisdom and wisdom into legacy. The first step is to learn. We have already explored books, skills, mentors, and the deliberate choice of what to study. Learning is the intake, the planting of seeds. But if we stop here, knowledge becomes like grain stored in a silo, potential food, but uneaten. Many people collect information endlessly, but never take the risk of stepping into the arena where it must be used. That is why the second step, application, is essential. Application is where knowledge becomes power. Think of a young doctor. Years of study provide a mountain of information about anatomy, biology, and treatment. But until they treat a patient, the knowledge remains theory. In the hospital, when faced with real symptoms and decisions, their knowledge transforms into skill, judgment, and confidence. What was once abstract now becomes life-saving. This applies everywhere. A person may study leadership but must actually lead a team, make decisions under pressure, and navigate conflict to truly embody leadership. A person may study negotiation but must sit across the table and feel the weight of silence, the dance of persuasion, to truly master it. Without application, knowledge is sterile, yet the circle is still incomplete. The final step is sharing. When you teach, mentor, or simply explain what you know to someone else, you deepen your own understanding. This is one of life's paradoxes. The best way to learn is to teach. Sharing forces clarity. You cannot hide behind vague phrases. You must articulate ideas in ways others can grasp. And in doing so, you discover the gaps in your own comprehension and fill them. Socrates understood this. He did not write books, but taught through dialogue, asking questions, provoking thought, and guiding others to discover truth themselves. His knowledge lived on not because he hoarded it, but because he shared it, planting it into the minds of his students. The greatest legacies in history come from those who shared their wisdom. Confucius, who passed on principles of harmony. Jesus, who spoke in parables that outlived empires. And teachers, known and unknown, who shaped generations. There's also a multiplying effect. When you share knowledge, you ignite it in others. A single spark can light many candles without losing its own flame. Consider the story of Frederick Douglass. Born into slavery, he secretly learned to read, a dangerous act at the time. Once free, he did not keep that knowledge to himself, but used it to speak, write, and inspire a nation toward justice. His sharing became a movement, and his words still inspire today. Sharing also brings meaning. Knowledge used only for personal gain can leave you feeling empty. But knowledge used to uplift others gives life purpose. A teacher who sees a student succeed, a mentor who sees a protege thrive, or even a parent who guides a child, all experience a deeper wealth than money can buy. The return is not financial, but generational. Think of this in terms of legacy. Wealth in money often fades after 1 or 2 generations, but wealth in knowledge, when passed on, can ripple through centuries. The writings of Aristotle influenced medieval scholars, who in turn shaped the Renaissance, which shaped the modern world. The circle of knowledge is not just personal, it is civilizational, and here lies a profound truth. If you want to keep knowledge, give it away. If you want to ensure its impact, pass it on. The circle completes itself only when knowledge flows outward. So how can we practice this in daily life? Start small. If you read a book that changes you, tell a friend about it. If you learn a skill, show someone else how to do it. If you gain insight from a mentor, become a mentor to someone younger. Write, speak, share. Whatever form feels natural. The act matters more than the medium. In doing this, you also strengthen the community around you. A society where people share knowledge is a society that thrives. A workplace where colleagues mentor each other is a workplace that grows stronger. A family where wisdom is passed from generation to generation is a family that remains resilient. Sharing is not only personal duty, it is social wealth. And so, as we close this journey, remember the circle. Learn with intention, apply with courage, and share with generosity. This is how knowledge compounds into wisdom and spreads beyond the boundaries of your own life. Let us return to the truth that began our story. Material possessions vanish, markets rise and fall, fortune comes and goes. But knowledge endures. It cannot be stolen, it does not depreciate, and it grows richer the more it is used and shared. In a world where everything can lose value, knowledge is the one asset that never depreciates. It is the only wealth that cannot be confiscated, cannot be taxed into oblivion, and cannot be destroyed by fire or flood. It lives within you, shaping who you are, guiding how you act, and empowering what you create. Throughout this audiobook, we have seen how knowledge functions like capital. Books as the first gateway, skills as the living application, mentors as the accelerators, and wise choices as the compass. But above all, we have seen how knowledge must flow in a circle, learn, apply, share, for it to realize its full potential. The world often measures wealth in numbers, bank accounts, properties, investments. But those who truly shape history are measured by what they know and how they use that knowledge. The wealthiest souls are not always those with the biggest fortunes, but those whose understanding enriches lives around them. Warren Buffett's advice echoes here again. The best investment you can make is in yourself. This is not a slogan. It is a roadmap. Every hour you spend reading, practicing, or learning from others is a deposit into your lifelong account. Every act of sharing magnifies it, and unlike material wealth, this account pays dividends in confidence, resilience, opportunity, and legacy. So ask yourself, what will you invest in today? A moment of distraction, or a lesson that will serve you for decades? A fleeting purchase, or a skill that will multiply your capacity for the rest of your life? The choice is yours, and it is made daily. The great secret is that you are already rich if you hold knowledge and apply it. Money may come and go, but no crisis can strip away your understanding, your skills, or your wisdom. And if you continue to learn, that wealth will only expand. True richness, then, is not measured by the money you leave behind, but by the knowledge you embody and pass on. A well-lived life is one where learning never stops, where curiosity remains alive, and where wisdom flows freely to others. So let this be your invitation. Commit to the lifelong pursuit of learning. Guard your time as carefully as an investor guards their capital, and use it to acquire knowledge that will serve you and those around you. Share generously, because every time you give knowledge away, you do not lose it. You double it. And perhaps in the end, you will discover that the greatest freedom, the greatest strength, and the greatest legacy is not in what you owned, but in what you knew and how you used it. Because the richest person is not the one with the most money, but the one with the most knowledge put into action. And that wealth, unlike any other, never dies.